Okay, so the first thing you need to understand for question number 3 is what the 5-figure actually is. So if you don't know what the 5-figure summary is, you really have to go back to the content and write some meaningful class notes that will help you. So the 5-figure summary means you need to figure out Q1, you need to figure out Q2, which is also called the median. You need to figure out Q3, that's 1, 2, 3, the max value, and finally the minimum value. So that's the 5-figure summary. So minimum and maximum are probably the easiest, so we'll just start with those. So here's the first. So the minimum value, you just have to make sure that you take a look. I would normally order my data first because you'll have to do that for Q1, Q2, and Q3. So you might as well just order them and then look at the minimum value, which is equal to 45. The second figure would be the maximum value. And the maximum value is basically the same thing. You just take a look. You look at your max value, which is 95, and you move on to the next one. So now we'll do Q1. Okay. Q1, actually Q2 is probably easier. If you do the median first, it's easier. So we're going to go ahead and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 pieces of data, which means that if you just divide that by 2, it's 16. But you can't just pick the 16th value. I'll show you why. 1, 2, 3, sorry, the 8th value. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you just pick this one, it's not balanced. You'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces of data on your right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of data on your left. So basically what you need to do is you have to go between these two values. Then you recount it. You just want to double check. There's a couple ways of doing the median, and I know that the course may show an extra formula, but sometimes I just find it easier doing it this way. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of data on the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of data on the right. So at this point, you know that the Q2 is found between these two values. So to find the middle of that, you add them up and you divide them by 2. Now, I'm not sure if you figured it out already, but if you add up the same number and divide it by 2, it will give you the same number. But just to show you, 71 plus 71, and then you divide that by 2, gives you 71. So the Q2 is equal to 71. Now, to find Q1, I'm just going to go ahead and highlight Q2 here so you can see it. Q1 is between 45 and 70. So it's somewhere in between there. And because there's 7 pieces of data, it's found right in the middle. So if you take a look here, if you could put 3 pieces of data on the left, 3 pieces of data on the right, which means that your Q1 is equal to 64. So you just have to balance it. And again, if you need help doing that, I'm going to go look in the content in a second, and I think they use a formula. So right over here, we have 7 pieces of data again. So 3 on the left, 3 on the right, and that makes for your Q3 value, which in this case is 82. So you just want to write down what Q3 is and Q1. So Q1 is equal to 64 and Q3 is equal to 82. So now we'll just go check the content and see where that can be found. So I know it's in activity 6, just not sure where in the content it is. And it's always really good to write some notes based on the lesson. So if I just go to the first content page, they're talking about measures of central tendency, which is the mean, median, and mode. That would be important to write. Standard deviation and variance. They talk a little bit about it. Here, they're talking about the range, and they're talking about outliers. Here, they're talking about box and whisker plot. And here's the 5-figure summary. So it's the minimum, the lower quartile, which is Q1, the median, which is Q2, the upper quartile, which is your Q3, and the maximum value. So there's where they talk about 5-figure summary. So I'm just wondering how they show how to find Q1, Q2, and Q3 here. So here they go, there we go. So they do the depth of the median. So basically you take the amount of data you have, you add it up by 1, divide that by 2. So in our case, to find the depth of the median, we go we'll count how much data we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So there's 16 pieces of data here. So I'm just going to write depth of the median. I'll write the formula first, which if we go back to the content, it's n plus 1 divided by 2. Okay, that's something you'll just have to memorize. I forgot how much data points we had, so I'm just going to have to go back and count them. 16. So there's 17 pieces of data. So 17 plus 1 is 18. 18 divided by 2 is 9. So if you go back to the ninth piece of data, here's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7, 8, 9. It tells you that your Q2 is 71. And then to figure out the rest, oh, there's 16 pieces of data. Hold on, did I count that wrong? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Sorry, there's 16 pieces of data. So I did this wrong. It'll be 17 divided by 2. And 17 divided by 2, I believe, is 8.5. So I just want to double check because I don't want to make a mistake there. So 17 divided by 2 is 8.5, okay. So it's not the 8th, it's not the 9th, it's between 8 and 9. So it's exactly what I did here. You take your 8th value, you take your 9th value, you add them up, and you divide them by 2. So in the content, I'm not sure if they show that. Here it wasn't exactly, it wasn't in the middle. The 6th position is the one that they needed. But if it was 6.5, you would take the 6th, you would take the 7th, you would add them up and divide them by 2. So here you can find the depth of the quartiles. You can do the exact same thing, except this time you're going to work with only 5 numbers, because that's in the example, there's only 5 numbers to the left of the Q2. So if you take a look here, you have 5 numbers, depth of the median rounded up to a whole number. So 5 plus 1 is 6. You divide 6 by 2 and it's equal to 3. So that's the 3rd position. You go from the 3rd from the beginning. Now for the 3rd quartile, which is the upper quartile, you take the last 5 values and then you can either divide them into equal parts on the left side and the right side, or you can do the depth of the quartile. So you still have 5 pieces of data, add a 1 to it, so 6 divided by 2, which is 3, so it's the 3rd position. And in our case, if I do that, I'm trying to go down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of data to the left. So 7 plus 1 would be 8 divided by 2, so we'd go to the 4th position. So here's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and that's why my quartile 1 is 64. So please let me know if that's a little bit confusing, but just go back to the content and try to use that example to work from that. So again, I like to use the balanced method, but some people like to use the depth of the median and depth of the quartiles.